Okay, it's 5 o'clock sharp and we are beginning. So you may or may not have already seen from the recipes, we've got 3 desserts we're making in honor of Valentine's Day. So here is our preparations for the lovely Valentine's Day, or frankly, anytime you're ready to have some lovely desserts. Many of you already know me. For those of you who don't, I'm actually a little distracted letting people in. My name is Wendy Sachs, and I am on the board of Plant Powered Metro New York, and welcome to our Sunday cooking shows. It's not every Sunday, but cooking shows with our beloved homegrown chef Carole. Maybe she's in my neighborhood. It's really lovely. So Metro New York empowers people to find better health and overcome chronic disease through a whole food, plant-based nutrition and nutrition education. Together with a wide network of grassroots leaders and educators, we raise awareness about the health benefits of a whole food, plant-based diet. We build supportive communities that empower people to make lifestyle changes and organize and lead projects that spark changes to food policy, practice, and culture. Today, we are thrilled to once again present a cooking class with our culinary educator and director, Chef Carole. As usual, tonight, Carole will demonstrate her recipes. You should have gotten them in your email box. And if we can, and she'll direct us, we might be able to throw in questions throughout the presentation. If not, we'll reserve 15 minutes at the end to answer the questions. To do that, the best way we found is for you to put all your questions in the chat. I will answer them to the best of my knowledge and ability, and then we will also ask Carole, probably mostly at the end of the show, but maybe intermittently. Let's see, today, because we're preparing, Carole's very generously preparing 3 desserts. We might go a little bit over, so we might go closer to 6:30. Of course, if you need to leave at 6:15, hop on and off as you will, but otherwise, just know we might go a little bit later. So let me just see if I've said everything I need to. I think that's it. So in honor of Valentine's Day, Chef Carole, what do you have on the menu today?
Thank you, Wendy, for the introduction, and thank you for all the people that are behind the scenes, David and Rika, and it takes a group of us to make this, to pull all this off. I'm very excited because today's baking, and we don't get to spend very much time baking on my show, and it's really, truly my wheelhouse. I was a baker and worked in a bakery for a long time and did pastries. And when I switched from eating processed sugar and salt and oils and butter, and baking was like the first thing that I had to feel like, how am I going to tackle that? Like, how am I going to eat any desserts? Even if I'm not eating desserts every single day. I always like reminding people that George Washington ate cake on his birthday, but dessert wasn't every day. So I really would like to just say that this is my wheelhouse for certain. It's something that I love very much. I've been inspired by a lot of people that are baking out there. And then usually what I have done, especially the recipes that we're going to do today, none of them actually are mine, but I feel like I've added things to make them mine. So the very first thing is, as Wendy had mentioned, we have a lot to do. And I'm going to start with cinnamon cookies, cinnamon crinkle cookies. And we're going to save the very best thing for last. But the second thing we're going to do is brownies. And the third thing we'll do is the really special little cheesecakes, which is really, it's kind of like saving the gem for the last thing. So let's get on with things. I have definitely preheated my oven, okay? So that is at 350 degrees, and that is for this cookie. This recipe actually comes from a blog that is a mother and daughter blog called Monkey and Me, and it's quite good actually. They're from the Midwest, and I found this recipe, actually their recipe on T. Colin Campbell's nutrition site, and the first time I made it, I was like, oh my God, I love this cookie so much. So we're going to start by first placing the dates they suggest that you can put the dates in water and cover them if they're very hard, okay? But I have medjool dates that are pretty soft, so I'm just gonna put 6 medjool dates right into the Cuisinart here, okay? And it's fitted with an S blade, and I've taken out their pits, and I've taken off that little top part that where they grow onto the stem, because that also is kind of hard. So that is going in there, and I'm not covering them, and I'm just going to give it a pulse or two. Now this electric outlet can be a pain. So I'm just breaking those up. This is called pulsing, okay? When you don't actually put the motor on full time, and you're just pulsing the button. So now we're just gonna start literally adding the rest of the ingredients. I have a half a cup, okay, of old-fashioned oats, okay? And that's gonna go in there like that. And then I've also measured out almond flour, and we have a half a cup, okay, a half a cup of almond flour. I use the kind that is called blanched. It means that there are two kinds of almond flour. There's a kind where they just grind the whole almonds and it kind of looks speckled. It means that they don't take the shell off the almond when they grind it. And mine is blanched, meaning that they've cleaned the shell and it's very pure and very white, and it's very finely ground. And so we need a half a cup plus 3 tablespoons, okay, and then we need to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So let's just I didn't measure any of that in advance. So let's just do 1 teaspoon of baking powder. That's gonna go in there like that. And then we need to have 1/8 teaspoon of baking soda. And 1/8 teaspoon is really a half, right? A half of a quarter, and I have a quarter right here. So I'm just gonna do just a half of this, okay? And it's just gonna look like that, right? I don't know if you can actually see it, but I just did a half of a quarter so that we would have 1/8. Okay, and that's our baking powder, baking soda. We'll need a lot of that for later on. And then we're just gonna pulse everything. Oh, and we need 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, and let's do that now too, actually. So we're gonna take the cinnamon, and I have 1 teaspoon. And then I had just, rather than dirtying another one, I'm just gonna do a quarter plus another quarter equals a half, okay? That's that. That's all gonna go in there. Now it says options, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I don't really use salt in my recipes, but if you are not avoiding salt, it's so little bit of salt that you could go ahead and put that in, and it's 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so now we're gonna pulse it so that it alternately looks like sawdust. So we're just gonna pulse it like this. Now that's not gonna come together on its own, but I just wanna show you what that looks like, okay? So that you can see that it's all looks like, just like what I said, it looks like sawdust, okay? It's all ground. The almond meal has mixed in with the dates. The dates haven't like clumped up or anything like that. Just gonna give it one more second more. Okay, and then it needs 1 teaspoon of the wet ingredients go in at the very end. So it needs 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And, a lot of people ask me, what kind of vanilla do you use? I'll tell you the kind of vanilla that I use is often the most cheapest, or where I'm at and I buy it. I try to buy usually the organic. I try to buy pure vanilla, not imitation. And you can buy non-alcoholic and alcoholic, okay? So this particular one, I've noticed Trader Joe's has a good organic brand, and it's relatively a good price. I go through a lot of it very quickly. So that's 1 teaspoon, and that's all we need for that. And if anybody has a Costco membership, I tell you, buy it there, because their brand is very good, and it's a big, gigantic container. So I'm putting in a 1/4 cup of plant-based milk. This can be any kind of plant-based milk, so don't worry about it. I actually have some soy milk, but it can be almond milk, it can be oat milk, cashew milk, whatever you have. It can be rice milk. It's just a liquid milk, right? And let me So this is now going to come together just with that little bit of liquid. And you see it immediately is taken into making a ball. And I'm going to stop it here. That's it. That I'm going to stop. Let's get rid of that for a moment and move this here. And we actually are not going to need this anymore. So I'm going to get rid of it and put it over here. But this is what it looks like right now. You see it's kind of come together like a ball. And you don't have to take it out of this, but I personally like to take it out. So I'm going to show you how I like to do it. We'll move that. And I just get a bowl, okay? And I take it all out of here and I get this cleaned, okay? And I really get everything out of here so that I can shape these properly. I like to, and if it were at all too wet, if the dough were too wet, you could add a little more of the almond flour, okay? But this is feels really good. And how would you know? I guess you would know because I'm gonna show you. It's not real, it's sticky, okay? I'm just showing you by hand, okay? It's coming together. It's a little bit tacky, but it's okay. It really is. If it were really wet and you were heavy with the milk by accident, or sometimes your medjool dates could be very wet, just wet, then you would just add a little more flour, okay? So I have to let you decide that, okay? And I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm gonna move this so we have a little bit of room, okay? And we have the oven on, and we're gonna get our sheet pan out. And the sheet pan is right there, actually, not in my hand. It's a little further away. Let me dry this counter and let me get rid of, don't like to have all this wetness here. And I'm just gonna give you a towel. It's gonna pat, yeah, you can use that, what you have there. And I'm just gonna dry this off here really quickly. Okay, and if you have a patent mat or a silicone mat, you can put that on your sheet pan. I actually have been using parchment paper for a very long time. And I'm gonna pull that like this and just put it on my pan. If anybody wants to know, it's if you care, parchment paper, it's brown. If you only have access to the white paper, I think Reynolds makes the white paper. I try not to buy that, it's bleached. So it's better if you can just buy the brown paper. And then what we're gonna do for any time you're making anything, you'll see today we're gonna use this several times. This is a ice cream scoop and its number technically is 40. And how would you know it's a 40? It is because it says it in a little printed number right here on the side. Okay, so I'm just going to take this, and the reason you can see why I've taken it out, and I'm just going to scoop these very simply like this onto the pan. This small bit of recipe only makes like 9 cookies, and you don't have to make them this big, okay? You definitely don't have to make them this big. You can make them smaller if you like, but I like people to have at least a couple bites, okay? And I think I like making this small batch because for me, cookies are a little bit of a, I could eat all these by myself. So here we have an odd amount left, okay? And it doesn't matter. You see, it's just a little bit. And if you didn't have a scoop, you could just take the balls and just roll like practically a 2-inch ball, okay? I'm just gonna show you. Kind of looks like a meatball, right? So again, if you don't have a scoop, you could easily just make a ball, pull off some dough, and make a 2-inch scoop. And I have a little bit left. Sometimes I take this little bit and I divvy it out amongst all of them, or we can just make a teeny one. But today I'm gonna divvy it out, and I'm just gonna put it on here. Just a little bit, everyone gets a little bit. And that's why you scoop all. I always say it's kind of like how Ford built cars. You know, the tire goes on and then the next part goes on. You do every process all at one time, okay? So you scoop everything. If you were making this recipe 4 times, you would scoop everything all at once and then you would flatten everything. So then I just take my hand and I just actually use the back of my hand to flatten the cookie. Okay, that's it. You could use a jar to flatten it, but you would need to have some kind of like plastic or something between the jar, because if we were to flatten it like this right now, it's going to stick to the jar. Do you see? So you don't want to, you'd have to put some kind of plastic. Okay, but I'm just showing you that a jar actually is a good way of flattening it. Okay, and I like using the back of my hand. Sometimes I even will wet the back of my hand just a little bit. You don't want it too wet, but it will allow you to kind of not get anything stuck. You see, nothing is sticking to your hand. And I'm just pressing those. And they're probably about 1/4 inch thickness. I'm gonna move this one to over here. Okay, and now you can see they're all flat, right? They're all flat, they're all even, they're uniform. And that's what's really great about using the scoop. Okay, and I'm just gonna squish this one a little more. They do puff up some, not a lot. Okay, I'm just gonna rinse my hands here because it's very sticky. And the last thing is to do is really to just use the cinnamon and just give it a little bit of snow dusting, a little dusting. Just so we're gonna get our cinnamon. And usually when I do this, you can do it with a sifter. This is a little mesh one. And I'm just going to put a little bit here. And I never do it on top. I have just a little bit. And then I'm just going to go across the top and put a little bit of cinnamon. Okay. And that is going to make it very special. And this is where the recipe technically finishes. But I take it one step further, just one little step further, because I think it's just nice to decorate. Okay. Many of you know who come to my classes often, I'm all about the presentation. So I've added one little step here. It's not a big step. Okay. And I get these kind of sliced almonds, right? Everybody knows these are sliced almonds, not slivered. Slivered are when they're like hard and long and skinny. These are sliced, meaning that they're sliced, right? They look like that. Okay. They look like that. So I like to make a little pattern. You could do it however you want. You could make 2 little ears. I like to actually put 3 on a thing to make it like really pretty. And that's what I like. That is the way that I finish the tops. If I don't have any cranberries today, red cranberries, or not cranberries, but like dried cranberries would be perfect if you were making these on holiday for Valentine's Day. I'll show you in a minute. Just let's get all of our nuts. So you can see they're not all perfectly shaped, and it gets on my nerves a little bit, but you have to find the ones that are whole still. Okay. And you're just putting those and into a little pattern like that. Okay. This takes a little bit of time, but results in making everything look really pretty. Okay. And those are going to go in the oven and they're going to bake. And I don't know if anyone has any questions, but let me just show you one little finishing touch while I get a few more nuts. You see, there's a lot of broken ones in these. I think because, I don't know, there just are. When I was a kid, I liked these windmill cookies so much. And I think that I liked them because they had these sliced almonds on them. Oops, and I see that I missed one and I don't have a nice one here. Okay, so that is the end of decorating, right? But if you want, and again, for Valentine's Day, if you had dried cranberries and they were red, I have some raisins here. It's a little big, they're a little big raisins. Currants would be ideal, but I just want to show you that you could put a little black dot in the middle, okay, if you wanted. You don't have to. None of this is that you have to. We were done when we put the cinnamon on, right? But you can see how just a little bit of decoration just makes things extra special. Okay, and I'm just pushing that in there like that. I'm putting that right in the center and I think it'd be beautiful if we had the red cranberries.
Beautiful.
That is these cookies, simple as all get out. Again, I make them very fast when I'm not talking to anyone, but they're very fast. And they're now going to go in the oven, 350 degrees. And we will put a timer on them so that I don't forget. They bake for 12 minutes. So when I'm baking, I always set the timer for something shorter, just a little bit shorter. So like, I'm going to set it for 10 minutes. And that way it rings. And then I go into the oven a few minutes before I think they're going to be done, because everyone's oven temperature is different. So, you could live at a different altitude, even everything affects your oven, right? And so you just want to check the oven before the recipe says cook it for 30 minutes. We'll check it in 25. And I often also rotate the cookies, but these are in for a very, very short period of time. So all of this, we're done with this, and I don't want to take it too far because it might have something. Yes.
We do have questions, so if this is a good time to interrupt, I will.
Okay.
So one of the interesting questions, if somebody's allergic to oats and somebody's allergic to almonds, but not to other nuts, what might you substitute? And some of the suggestions have been either chickpea flour or maybe quinoa flakes, which I thought was actually a great idea. What do you think?
So no oats, right? No oats. So, well, so they're allergic to nuts entirely? Oh,
No,
just almonds. Almonds, so they can use a walnut, right? Or any kind of ground nut. It could be a cashew, right? Any kind of nut. And then we're going to replace the oats. And I'm thinking out loud. It's possible, maybe some ground, we're going to use millet soon. And that's in front of me, and that could be ground millet could work, because ground millet has a way of helping things thicken. And that's exactly what the oats are doing. It's having a binding effect. So one could try the quinoa as well. I would probably grind the quinoa is what I would do. Yeah.
As opposed to flakes, yeah. So in answering that question.
Or you could get the flakes if you have access to the flakes.
Yeah, I think that's better than the chickpea flour one, but
I would not use chickpea flour in this, because chickpea flour has a real distinct taste.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't use the chickpea flour in this.
Okay, great. So quinoa itself, quinoa flakes, or millet, which was actually my first thought, but then I wasn't sure. So anyway, excellent. What size scoop? I think you already mentioned it, but is that also equal to 2 tablespoons?
It is, you know what? It's a really good, let's see. Honestly, let's just see. I'm going to show you. Let's just see. I have the scoop here, and this is 2 tablespoons. No, it's not going to be 2 tablespoons. It is 2 tablespoons. It's a 2 tablespoons exact.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Okay, so if you didn't have a scoop, you could use 2 tablespoons. And it's the number 40. Number 40. I mean, if you're baking and you're going to see, I use this thing like it's my hand. I have many different size scoops, but the 40 is the most perfect for so many things.
Beautiful. And can you grind the almonds if you don't have almond flour?
Yeah, if you're gonna, I would grind them in if you had a Vitamix, that would be the best. I mean, or Nutribullet, you want to really make them into powder.
Great. Is there risk of the cookies being more coarse using a ground versus the flour?
No, because it's just, they're almonds and they're always going to be ground. I'm just, the almond meal that I buy is very fine. So you're just going to want to grind it fine. But again, when you're grinding nuts, the longer you grind something, right, just be careful. I'm going to warn you that you're not turning it into almond butter, okay? Because the more you're spinning and spinning and spinning, eventually it's going to become butter. So you just, there's a stopping point from when it's flour to when it's butter.
And finally, these cookies turn out crisp or softer, or crisp on the
they're actually, you're going to see them in a moment, but they're going to be crisp on the outside, but really soft, actually, really soft. And yes, they're not crisp. No, they're not crunchy.
Okay, good. That's it for now. I believe I've gotten, I think, all the questions so far. So we're ready to move on. Beautiful.
Okay, we're ready to move on. So we are going to move on, and we are going to move on to brownies right now. Okay, and we are because we are saving some things for the very last. So let's just, this is a recipe that is on Forks Over Knives. And I really fussed with it a lot. It was an inspiration for me, the recipe. But over time, when I was making it, I don't know, numerous times, I just felt like I had to change it. So, and I have. So let's get on with it. And we're going to get a big mixing bowl, okay? And I want to get the recipe in front of me because it's very important to have everything in front of you. I tend to memorize things, and it's not a good idea, actually. And I think I've told a bunch of you, often I tell you that I put the recipes in these little plastic sleeves. That way everything remains clean. And then they go into a 3-ring binder. And then I can rinse things off, and at least your paper doesn't get fully dirty, because everything in the kitchen, every time you put it down, it's going to be something wet. So what we're going to do is start with our wet ingredients into this bowl, okay? And we need 2/3 of a cup, which I've already measured. This is a 2/3 cup measuring cup, okay? And we're going to put, this is date paste, okay? I did not give you in this particular batch of recipes how to make date paste. You can either look that up, or I can quickly tell you that it's, if you take like a cup of dates and you put them in a bowl, and then you cover them with water, and you let them soak on your counter for 15 minutes to a half an hour, just so they get soft. And then you take those dates and you put them into a processor, whether it's a NutriBullet. I particularly always make the date paste in the Cuisinart. And the reason I make it in the Cuisinart is because the lid comes off, and you put the dates in, and they spin around, and you can take the lid off, and everything is, you can look at it in your head, like just put your head peer in and look at everything. With the NutriBullet, it's a little more complicated. It works, but it's not the same machine. So I put a little bit of that date water into it until it becomes like a puree, very soft. How much water? You learn how much water that it will take to get it all ground and spin. And this is the amount right here. Okay, so we're putting 2/3 cup in. And then it says we need 6 to 8 tablespoons of water. And I know that we need 8 tablespoons. I always say 6 to 8 because we are going to put a little bit of almond butter in here. And it really depends on where you're buying your almond butter and how thick it is. So let's just do 8. And I'm just going to do it really fast here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's and that's going to just get mixed. Okay, we're also going to put in applesauce, and applesauce works as our fat replacer. Okay, normally you would be putting butter or some kind of oil, usually butter. It's usually butter, and this applesauce is a good substitution, okay, for your oil. So now we've replaced processed sugar, right, with the dates, and we put in the applesauce as a way of replacing the oil. We also usually put eggs into things, right, for baking. And there are flaxseed eggs. And if anyone doesn't know the proportion, I just would like to tell you that 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed plus 3 tablespoons of water equals 1 egg. Okay, so I'm going to just say it one more time so you know. 1 tablespoon of flaxseed to 3 tablespoons of water equals 1 egg. Here, we're going to put 4.5 teaspoons, okay? I'm not making a whole egg here. I know that we have 4.5 teaspoons, and that's going in there, and that is acting like our egg, okay? The one thing that I definitely added to this recipe is instant espresso powder. And the reason that I added it is because it is so delicious, and chocolate and that kind of strong coffee are really delicious. Do you have to put it? You don't have to put it, but it adds. And the kind that I have here is this espresso instant coffee. And I've given a link to Wendy so she can put it in the chat. So this is it right here. And it's called Madiglio d'Oro. And it's an Italian espresso instant powder. Okay, there are lots of brands of instant espresso. You don't have to use that brand. It's just a brand that I've really always had in my kitchen. And that coffee is dissolving in there. You don't have to do anything. It's just literally instant coffee. Then we're doing this. We're putting in some vanilla. And let's look at these cookies. We have the timer that just went off. And let's just look at them to see how I can definitely smell them. And they look delicious, but I can tell that they're not quite done. Okay, these are what they're looking like. I just want to show you. And I'm going to put them back in. And how do I know they're not done? Because they're just not brown enough. And I can see that they need just another few minutes. So I know that they need probably another few minutes. And I'll remember. But I have an intuitive sense for things when they have to come out of the oven. The next thing is so I put the vanilla in, and now I'm gonna put 3 tablespoons of almond butter. Now my almond butter looks like this, pretty much like cement, okay? It looks hard as a rock, and that's going in there. And that is going in there. And remember, we put 8 tablespoons of water in. And if you had almond butter, I know when I often get almond butter at the Trader Joe's, and it's very, very runny. So if your almond butter is runny, you probably won't need the full 8 tablespoons of water, okay? But mine is that kind that you go to the store and you grind it yourself, and it's hard as a rock, right? Or I actually buy it that's already ground, but you can grind it yourself, and it's just very, very thick. So that is going in there, and that's why I knew that we needed all that water. Okay, and now the rest of the things that have to go in there is the flour. So this is basically our wet ingredients. And I'm just gonna make sure we did everything. We did the date paste in the applesauce, the coffee, the almond butter, the flaxseed, the vanilla, and the 2 things. We did do the vanilla. The vanilla was here, and we did the vanilla. And then we have to still add the cocoa powder, and we have to add all the baking powder and the baking soda. So let's get these things closer. And we need 1/4 teaspoon. And I kept all the spoons close to me. And let's just see. Sometimes I also want to show you that I have a cup of spoons, okay? And I'm just I try to keep all the spoons near me, and maybe I've taken one away. I'm gonna look here. Here they are. I do have 2 sets of spoons, and I always remind people to take them off their rings. You know, when we buy them in the store, they come on a ring, and they act like a little family because they need to be sold, you know, in a set. But definitely take them off, okay? Because there's nothing more aggravating when I go to somebody's house and they still have them on the ring. You use 1 spoon, and then you've dirtied them all, basically. Okay, so that's kind of a pain. So I have the 1/4 teaspoon here. It's a little wet. And there's my other 1/4 teaspoon. You see, I have 2 sets just hiding out here. It was sitting here waiting for me to use it. We'll put it right there. So we need 1/4 teaspoon of powder, and we're just gonna put that right here on top of the cocoa. And we need 1/4 teaspoon of soda. This all needs to stay close by because the soda and the powder. And we're gonna put this is there, 1 teaspoon of soda. And then we have 7.5 tablespoons of cacao. Okay, so what is that? I'm just gonna show you the brand that I use. It's this brand right here, cacao powder. And I like it a lot. And Wendy will provide a link to it in case you can't see that and write it down quick enough. But that is what I use. And that is going into the liquid right this very minute. This particular recipe also doesn't have salt. If you really need it, I left it off entirely because I don't use it. But if you were to put some salt, I would probably put 1/4 teaspoon, and that would if that's something that you really want to use, but it's definitely not on the recipe. And then we need, lastly, the flour. And I'm using a whole wheat pastry flour. And pastry flour is a little different. It's a lighter flour, lighter, okay? And I want to show you what it looks like, so in case you were to go buy it for the very first time. What's super great is that Whole Foods, if you live near Whole Foods, they make a little 2-pound bag that I like a lot. And why do I like it? Because I don't use a lot of pastry flour all the time, but it's just the right proportion. Oftentimes you can find it in a bulk store and just buy whatever you need. But again, this is just a 2-pound bag. Could you use regular whole wheat flour? Yes, you can. It's just going to result in a little bit of a heavier product. And I really like the pastry flour here. And it's worth, if you're baking a lot, it's definitely worth getting. Okay, that's how I, and then this gets mixed, and I'm just going to give it I have a small spatula here. I don't know if it's ideal for mixing, but we just want to get all of this mixed and incorporated. And it smells so good. There's nothing like chocolate, right? And this is going to get poured into an 8x8 square pan. The cookies are going to be ready now. I have to stop the brownies for a minute. I can tell that the cookies are ready. They smell good. They smell and they look perfect. And we need to have the oven still at 350 for the brownies. But let's just look at the cookies right now so you can kind of see them. Okay. And I'll show you in the middle of while we're cooking brownies. I will get a spatula. And if you had any doubt that they were done, you could just pick it up and you could look at its bottom. Okay, I'm just looking at its bottom and it's nice and light brown. I can't show it to you right now because it's too hot. But what I'm going to do for these just to cool, I'm literally going to take you can take the whole sheet pan, but I'm going to I want the sheet pan. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to just slide them off to a cooling rack over here. And that sheet pan can just stay there. Back to making brownies. We're getting this mixed. Get all that flour and chocolate mixed in. And you're going to see that everything we're baking today in a pan is going to be a silicone pan. And I have started to buy these pans because now that I'm not cooking with any oil, that seems to be the best way to bake is in the silicone pans. It is the way that you don't have to grease anything, okay? And this is just getting mixed. I see a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of almond butter in there. And there. So that is mixed and that looks like that, okay? And what are we gonna do? We're gonna get this all scooped out and I'm gonna show you that steams here. And I'm gonna show you 2 pans, okay? Ideally, if you had a silicone pan or you're going to bake a lot of brownies in the future in your life, or you're going to make cornbread, it is worth investing in one of these pans. I think I paid $15 for this little pan, silicone 8x8. But if you didn't have one, right, don't panic. You could use your metal or ceramic pan, but you're going to have to line it, right, because we're not greasing it. So what you would do is you would take your parchment paper and you would make 2 pieces and you would line it and you would cut it so that it fits one direction. And then you're going to take the other one and it's going to lay the other direction. And then you would pour your brownie mix right into here. And then after it bakes, you can just lift it out like this, okay? That is going to allow you to lift it out. If you didn't have parchment paper for this exact thing, you could use foil, but I'm just saying it as an alternative process, okay? But right now, we're going to, and we can add nuts. So that's optional at this point. This batter already has some nuts in it because of the almond butter. But what I do is I cut up a little bit of nuts and I like just putting a few inside. Okay, not a lot. I don't put all of them inside because I actually prefer to decorate the top. And I'd rather, so I put a few in, okay, and then we're gonna take this right here. Gonna put it right into this, get it all fairly stiff, very, very, very chocolatey, very chocolatey. And this is going to bake for about 30 minutes. We'll think we'll still be in class, yes, because we're going to be making our cheesecakes. But let's just get all this out. I'm a stickler for getting it all out. See if I can get another cleaner spatula and get this out. Okay, sometimes you need 2 spatulas. Okay, so this is going to go spread evenly, right? You're going to get it into all the corners. It's really important that you get it even. I like putting it in the middle and then spreading it out, okay? Because you want your brownies all even. And I just give it a little swirl there, and you can hit it. It's not going to really do much when you're hitting it. This is a thick batter. And at this point, you can, and some people ask me, can I taste the batter? And you actually can. Usually I would have tasted it before it goes in there, because often if you forget, maybe you forgot the dates, maybe you forgot something that was really important. By tasting it, actually, it gives you a sense of what possibly you had forgotten. So I'm going to move that here for now. The spatulas I probably need. And we're going to just decorate it as we want, okay? And everybody, I hope, can see that. I'm going to put a few of the nuts on top, just a few. Again, we didn't put a lot inside. I like just having the top decorated. And because it's Valentine's Day, right? And I think my very favorite thing, people say, what kind of cake do you like? I said, oh, I love chocolate with raspberries. So I'm going to use the excuse here. This is eventually going to get cut into 12 pieces. So why don't we put some raspberries in some pieces, okay? So I'm going to just put half. And it's each piece is going to, I'm going to give everybody a raspberry on this side. So 4 pieces, 4 raspberries. And then I'm going to put just half the batter is going to get, half the brownie is going to get raspberries. And the other ones are going to stay plain. So we have, this is what this is going to look like. You could put the raspberries all over and put 12, but we just did 2, 4, 6, 8. And then there's going to be 8. So there'll be 8 without raspberries and 8 with raspberries. That's way when we cut it and plate it, you'll have a little bit of everything. So that's going into the oven now and for 30 minutes. Okay. And we'll look at it in 25. And we'll keep that all good. And we are moving along. Is there any questions about the brownies?
Yes, Carole, many.
Wow, many. Wow.
We can zip fire through them because we're at 5:45. So I know we're fine. We're all on schedule, but many. So a lot of the questions have to do with substitutes. And can you substitute cashew or macadamia butter for almond butter?
I think you can do any kind of butter you'd like. Cashew butter is very expensive, but definitely I love using it for baking. I like using it when I make my tart doughs because it's very light in color. But if you're willing to spend the money on those 2 nuts, I think it would work just fine. I think you could also use the peanut butter. Again, the nut butter is acting as a fat.
Yep, got it. What about sunflower seed butter?
I think that would be a great idea, and I think it's delicious.
Great. So those are substitutes for almond butter. Interesting one. Monk fruit is sometimes sold in a bag in the form of a powder, like a sugar.
Yes.
What are your feelings on substituting the monk fruit powder for dates?
You could try it. I haven't used it. I have been practicing recently. I've been getting date crystals, and I've been substituting that instead of date paste. It's something that you're just going to have to experiment with, and believe me, you just have to go in there and try it. You could also use maple syrup if you're not opposed to maple syrup. So it would be a 1-to-1 ratio. So if we're using 2/3 paste, 2/3 cup of date paste, you would use 2/3 cup of maple syrup.
Got it. So one thing I do want to add to that is any of these things that get turned into a powder, you're one step removed from a whole food, or maybe many, many steps removed. The thing about the date paste is it still has the fiber in it, plus the sweetness, plus the water. And the key to this way of eating is really fiber and water. So if unless you're allergic to dates, it's probably healthier, I would imagine, using the dates than the monk fruit powder.
And I do want to say one more thing, because today I've been in experimental phases with making challah. I've been practicing without, I'm a challah baker. I like having it for Shabbat, and I have been really stumped. There's such a thing as water challah, which has no eggs. But when you're challenged to make no eggs, no oil, and no processed sugar, then what do you do? So I have been practicing. I have been pretty successful, and I just made one today that had sweet potatoes instead of date paste. And so I think sweet potatoes could be a good replacement as well for your sugar in your brownies. So
Right.
I just want to mention that because I think it's a good swap.
Right. Excellent idea.
And so are bananas, right? I don't know. Bananas are a great sugar swap for date paste as well. I just don't know if you want your chocolate brownies to be tasting like bananas. You know, maybe you do. They go together. They go together, but it's really going to be banana brownie is what it's going to be.
Right. Okay, good. Few more. What's a gluten-free alternative to a wheat flour?
I guess oats, right? An oat flour.
Right.
I mean, chickpea flour is another substitute, right? But again, I don't know if I would use it here. I would probably lean towards oat flour.
Right. And how does spelt flour compare to pastry flour for baking?
I think you could definitely sub it out. I love spelt flour. There are lots of things that I make with it, and it's delicious and it's nutty and it's perfect for baking.
Great. And then a couple questions about the chocolate. Can you use vegan melted chips that are double boiled? So melted vegan chocolate chips. I know that you recently found a brand that is sort of less offensive in terms of dairy and sugar. Do you want to share that brand?
I do. Let me just see if I have it right here. I do have it right here. Chocolate chips are an issue, okay? And maybe they're not an issue if you're not trying to be super clean and eat the way that I eat, okay? And there are places where you can make allowances. There are many, many, many vegan chocolate chips on the market. Lots. There's about 10 of them, and I've read all the bags and all. And again, it's up to you what you're willing to put up with. Okay, if you're willing to put up with sugar being the first ingredient, if you're willing to, most chocolate chips have some kind of milk in them. There's a brand that is called Lily's, and Wendy did not give you this because we weren't talking about chocolate chips at all today. But this is a pretty good brand. It's called Lily's. And what do they have in them? They do have erythanol, and they do have a little bit of stevia in them. But according to Dr. Greger, those two items are okay, and it's a small amount. It's not the first ingredient. The first ingredient on this is actually unsweetened cocoa. So that's a positive sign. So if you're not using a lot, that's a good substitute. Now back to the recipe. Can you use melted chocolate? Sure, I'm sure you can, but cacao or cocoa, either one of those, which are kind of interchangeable, is what I would recommend.
Right. And that was a question, is cocoa and cacao interchangeable? And just while I'm thinking of it, Michael, I see that you have a hand raised, but if you could put your your question in the chat, that'd be easier.
The two there, you can actually, I would Google it for your, that's what I would do. The two are somewhat interchangeable, yes. They're just processed differently, okay? Cacao powder is less of a processed cocoa bean than cocoa. So, and it's actually different colors, to tell you the truth. I mean, one is much more dark, one is much more of a brown color, but it's how they process them. But you can interchange them. I tend to lean towards the cacao unless a recipe specifically calls for cocoa. But even when it calls for cocoa, I use the cacao.
Great. And I think that is, I think that's it. So double boiling, I'm just double checking, double boiling
The melted chocolate, sure, you're gonna have to find the chips that are not so offensive, and you're gonna melt them in a double boiler. And yes, you can put them in, but why do you have to do all that work when you can use the cocoa
Great.
or the cacao? I don't know. You're just adding extra sugar because most of those baking chips have sugar in them. Most of them.
Okay, good. We can move on. Questions are answered, and here we go to the grand finale.
Well, the grand finale is really like incredibly yummy, and I want to tell you, this is a Kathy Fisher recipe from her Straight Up Food. It's actually her website is Straight Up Food, but this is not in her cookbook. This is only on her website, and I follow it to pretty exact. I didn't really change anything until we get to the finishing of. She actually makes it in a nice heart silicone pan for Valentine's Day. And I made them last year for Valentine's, and I didn't want to go out and just get a Valentine's silicone baking pan just to make heart cheesecake. So I tend to use my little one that I use for everything else, which is a mini 11 cups. And Wendy has the brand, and I'll just show it to you. It's Luke. I'm just going to show you the box that we're going to make these in. And that is, I use these for everything. I make cornbread, poppy seed cake in them. I make everything in them, because the reason that I make everything in them is because I like giving individual servings, and I like giving small individual servings. I don't have any need to make big muffins. And the scoop, my very favorite scoop, the number 40, fits this perfectly. And the reason you know that is because if you put your scoop inside the hole, it is exactly the same dimension, and this amount fills the batter. So it's kind of these two items go together. So let's get it started, because this batter needs to sit just a little bit. And I am making a half a recipe, and those that were with me the last time, if you remember, I made a half a recipe, and I really, I didn't do so well because I added too much water because I added the full recipe. So I want to show you specifically what I always do and didn't do last time is that I take a Post-it. Okay, I take a Post-it and I put it right next to all the ingredients, and I write out the half part. I make a lot of half recipes, especially when I'm trying something for the first time, or sometimes a recipe just makes way too much volume. It could serve 4 to 6 people, and maybe I don't want to have that much of a product. So I half recipes all the time. So I have the Post-it. I've written all the ingredients down, and you can follow along with me, and I will say it out loud so that we don't mess up anything for this, because I want you to see that I have done this well this time. So the very first thing is the full recipe calls for 1.5 cups of cashews, which is 7 ounces. And what's really great is that Kathy gives us some ounces and gives us some whole measurements and cup measurements. And it's really nice because baking is ideally the best way to measure is with a scale. That is the best way. So we have 3/4 of a cup of cashews, raw cashews. And I measured these, and it was actually 3.5 ounces. I measured them on a scale, and that is going into this cup, okay? And then we need to have 6 medjool dates, and that is going in here. and well, it's 6 ounces, and she says it's about 10 to 11. And so I actually need 3 ounces of dates, and I measured 3 ounces of dates. So that is going in here right now. And you know what? I think that is, I want to make sure. Can I get my scale to just, I want to double check that, is because you never know. And the scale that I use, thank you, David. This is the OXO scale, okay? And I'm just going to put this on really quickly and just make sure that I did this right, because it says 3 ounces of dates, and I'm sure that I did it right. We'll use this little plastic top. I'm going to zero everything out. We're going to just put these dates in here. Oh, and it's exactly 3 ounces. Okay, so we're okay. So 3 ounces of dates are going in there. If you second guess yourself sometimes, it's really good. But this is nice to have this date scale, and I'm just going to put it down over here. And we need to have millet, okay? And we need, the recipe calls for 1/4 cup of millet, uncooked millet. Millet, technically, we all talk about it as a grain, but technically it's a seed, and it's very good. If any of you have not ever eaten millet, I encourage you to try it. It's very good as a porridge. It's really delicious in your oatmeal. Often you'll find millet in your whole grain breads, and this millet is going to help thicken this cheesecake. It's going to act as a binder. So that's whole, it's not cooked, okay? And then we need to have it, the whole recipe calls for a whole cup of lemon juice. So we have a 1/2 cup, and we have a 1/2 cup of water. Okay, so I've put, this is the measurement here. I had a 1/2 cup of lemon juice, and then I filled the rest up with the water. And technically that's all going in there. Okay, and then we need one, it calls for an odd amount, 2 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And I just measured out 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. That's plenty of vanilla. What's really going to give this the zinger is the lemon juice. Okay, so that is all that needs to go in here. This is the NutriBullet. I find it very convenient for this particular recipe. Okay, and we're going to close that, and we're going to just blend it. Now, if any of you have ever made cream for any of your soups, you would soak cashews in water and often put a little bit of lemon juice to give it that tang. And that's a delicious, I often have a jar of that in the refrigerator if I'm making like a carrot ginger soup, or I'm making a cream of mushroom soup. It would be, I usually have the cashews as the cashew cream as a way of flavoring that soup. Okay, so that's enough of that. It's very noisy, and she actually tells us that we should let it sit now for 10 to 15 minutes. We don't have a great deal of luxury time like that, but we're going to let it sit for just a very few minutes, and we'll pretend that we had that amount of time. Okay, so again, I'm just checking. We did everything, the water, lemon juice, dates, and we've done the vanilla, and we've done everything there. So that's all good. I'm just going to move a few of these things here. Okay, and I'm also going to just peek at the brownies. I want to just peek at the brownies. They are rising. They're smelling delicious. I'm not going to take them out to show you. I want them to finish cooking. Okay, and we are going to do a couple other little things very quickly here. I have made a sauce for this. Let me just show you the sauce. I've made a little bit of a raspberry sauce for the cheesecakes. In Kathy's recipe, she just suggests that you take, I'll tell you what she suggests, and I've written it out for you here. It's 4 ounces of raspberries and some water, and then she's asking you to put some sweetener into it so it tastes delicious. Instead, what I've actually done is I've taken some fresh raspberries, I put them in a pot, and instead of getting a date or something out, I actually used a little bit of a fruit spread, and I'll just show you what that is. I used I always have a little bit of jam spread in the refrigerator because I'm a baker and I'm never slathering it on toast, but I'm always doing some kind of baking with jam. And this is a spread, a fruit spread, and it's sweetened with pineapple juice and apple juice concentrate. So it's a little bit sweet, okay? But if you're only going to use a little bit of it. So I took some raspberries, some frozen ones, not these nice fresh ones that we're going to use for the middle, but I took some frozen ones, put them in a pan. I put just 1 teaspoon of this raspberry jam just to make it sweet. That's all I did. This is all this is right now is some raspberries and a little bit of jam. That's it. Now I want to loosen it a little bit, but we're going to get a little bit of juice. You're going to see when we start to carve out these oranges. I have 2 blood oranges, and this is where I do the extra work that Kathy doesn't suggest we do, but it's something that I like doing. And we are going to take a zester, and I'm just going to zest. This is a washed orange, okay? And I'm just going to zest this orange, and I'm taking off just the top of the skin. We're not going too deep, okay? And we're pulling this, right? We're going like this. You have to be careful. This is a sharp tool. It's really good. And I actually like putting it in a cup, but this is too small of an orange to do that. Okay, and I'm gonna put a little bit of zest. That's gonna give this a little bit of nice flavor. Okay, I use zest for everything. It's my replacement for salt. Okay, and then now that we've taken the skin off, we can get a serrated knife. I'm just gonna get a serrated knife, and we're going to prep this. This is a blood orange. Okay, and I think it's most beautiful for Valentine's Day, and it's time for them. And any of this peel, I'm actually just going to put the juice in there. You'll see. So in case I wanted to show you how this is done, you're just like if you were peeling a cantaloupe, a big cantaloupe or a watermelon. You're just going to run the knife along the side, right? Then you can see how I'm exposing the orange. This is a very beautiful one. It's very ripe. I've had it for a very few days, and it's really ready to very much be eaten. It's a little bit soft. And what I like to do is there's juice here. So I actually take the time to, there's quite a bit of juice left in these skins, because sometimes you take a little bit of the orange, right? So I use a little bit of that juice in this sauce, and that gives it a heightened flavor. Okay, it's not essential. You can see that these little steps do take time. So if you're someone that's rushing and you don't want to do that, but it allows you to make it so delicious. Okay, and it makes extra flavor, and it's actually pink water. Look at that juice. I just want to show you what that looks like. Really beautiful. And I'm not going to heat this anymore because I don't want to have it hot for the cheesecake, but I do want to just give it a little bit of taste. And I have a little spoon here that I can just give this sauce a taste, just to see. It's very tangy. It's tangy, it's bright, it's flavorful, it's a little bit sweet. Its dominant flavor is raspberries. Delicious. Okay, delicious. So let's finish blending this. Okay, and I'm going to just move this temporarily for a moment because I want to show you. We have to pretend that that sat for like 15 minutes. Okay, we're in a time when we're speeding things up a little bit, right? And we're going to, this is very, very thick. I can see that it's very thick. It's like slowly doing a slow motion sinking to the bottom. I always give it a little bit of a taste. It's delicious. It's phenomenal. It's so rich and so tangy. And I get a spatula, and I'm just going to get, maybe I have another one, but let me get this one. Why you have to have like 2 or 3 spatulas. These little teeny spatulas come in packets of 3, And you can see we've made like 3 desserts and I've used almost all of them twice. So you could take, I recommend getting it out of here, okay? I always recommend getting everything out of the machine before you go scooping anything. And this batter can stay in your refrigerator for a couple days. I recently made this batter and made cheesecakes today from batter that I made on Wednesday night. And the cheesecakes came out just fine. So you don't have to make this right away. Okay, and I'm just getting this all out of here. We won't spend all this time. I'm a crazy person getting all of it out, but we'll get the rest of that out in a bit. We'll just leave that. I just want to show you. And of course, look at the lid. The lid, you never want to forget the lid. There's a lot of batter. There's probably 1 cheesecake, whole cheesecake, just right in there. Okay, and get all of that off. This is why I like making things in the Cuisinart, because the Cuisinart allows you to clean. Someone's going to say, can I make this in the Vitamix? You are welcome to make this in the Vitamix, but you are going to have to spend the time digging it out, okay? It's not like it's a bad thing. It's going to work out, but I'm just telling you, you have to sometimes have the right tool to make things a little easier for yourself. Okay, so if you can see, I just want to move this temporarily, just temporarily. Okay, we have all these things here. We'll get rid of those. And we are going to have the raspberries close by. So I'm going to take my silicone pan, my ice cream scoop, and I'm just going to start scooping this, okay? Really easily, quickly. It's fluffy. It's going to, and I don't know the time, the brownies are starting to smell. I think we're almost ready for the brownies very soon. We're going, so I made the half recipe, right? Everybody knows that I made the half recipe. And I'm just going to, we need to top that off. So I'm going to stop there, okay? If you made the full recipe, it definitely makes at least this pan plus another half, okay? Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9, okay? We have 9, and we are, I'm feeling like the brownies are going to be done in a minute, but let's just give them the minute that less than a minute that, and I'm going to take fresh raspberries and I'm just going to poke them in the middle, okay? That is going to be our little bite of surprise. You're going to hide those berries. Now, you might want to say, can I put a blueberry in there? Of course. Definitely put a blueberry. If this were July 4th, I would do both. I would put raspberry and some with blueberries. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, so that goes in there like that. Okay, you can see, I just want to show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And the brownies are, I think, done. Let's just see. I'm going to get them out here. I'm going to touch them first. You can take a toothpick to them, but they're always going to be a little moist inside. And these are pretty done. Well, no, I like them to have like less than 5 minutes. You're just going to cook them a few more minutes, just a very 5 more minutes. And then they'll be perfectly done. This is what they're looking like. Just want to show you. They look great. Beautiful. They're going back in for just 5 minutes. Now we're going to hide these raspberries, right? And I left a little bit of batter. So we're just going to take a little bit and we're just going to cover the raspberry. Okay? Just cover the raspberry. And the oven for these needs to be at 325. Just so you know, we don't have to put it in a bath of water or anything. I would put them on I'm going to put them on a sheet pan. Okay, and this is going to get that so that it's over here. Nothing like having 3 baked things and it ends up like you have, just going to put a little, okay, I'm going to do this. We haven't covered every one of them. I see, I forgot one. Okay, we're going to cover that like that. You see how simple this is, right? Everybody This is not hard. This is not hard at all. They're full to the top. Okay, they're full to the very top. And I see one that is not so full to the very top. And I can get a little bit of batter out of here still and get that used and put that. And again, I like having it all out of here. Okay, this is really dirty and ugly. And I'm just gonna, the oven is at 350, so we can't put these in quite yet. Okay, and that's, I'm getting those hit like that, right? You can see, I'm gonna put them on this sheet pan that we have right here, and I'm gonna bring it closer to you so you can see what this looks like. Okay, everybody can see perfectly. So we have 2 holes left. Usually when I'm making cupcakes, if these are not filled, I put a little bit of water in those little holes. But I'm not going to bother doing that because eventually these are going to flip over, and I'm just going to leave these just like this. And within minutes, the brownies are going to be done. Okay, and I want a plate. I need still this cutting board and the oranges and maybe a few raspberries. I'm going to get rid of this machine. We have these beautiful Myers lemons. I don't know if anybody knows about Myers lemons, but they're from California. They're the most delicious thing. They are sweet. So if you're baking, they're in season right now. And I want to just cut one open to show you how beautiful they are. They're kind of, one might think they're like an orange. There's nothing like them. Nothing in the world like a Myers lemon. And when I lived in California, people would give me bags full of them. And now I wait for them to get into season and I buy them at the Trader Joe's. So let me just get this cleaned just a little bit so that we have nice area. I had baked a few cheesecakes ahead of time. Okay, so we have those. Let me just get the counter dry. And we're gonna start to plate everything. And we have the cheesecake plate. And we're gonna get the brownies out right this very minute. Just, I can feel that they're done. And I'm gonna change the oven to 325 to bake the cheesecakes.
Carol, while you're at that oven, the recipe says 375.
So maybe let me look. The recipe says 325.
On the sheet that I have, the first instruction, number 1, says preheat. This is for the cheesecake.
I have 325.
Okay, on the one that got printed from Rihanna that was sent to everyone, it says 375.
Okay, so 325 is correct, and I have 325. So I don't know, maybe when it went for formatting at some point it changed, but 325 is the right temperature.
Okay, great. So
I'm glad that you pointed that out. I don't, sometimes things get changed after they leave my hands, sometimes. And maybe it was just a typo at some point, but I definitely have 325. So these brownies are just cooling right now. They're here. They're out of the oven. Okay. I want to plate the cookies, and the cookies are going to go on another thing here that we're going to put. Just going to lay the cookies here. And I want to show you their bottoms so you see that they're really nice. Okay. Those, we didn't make a lot of them, but we're going to just put them here. Okay. And then we're going to plate our little cheesecake on a tiny little circle here. And we are how are we going to plate this? I always have to think about it. We are first going to get the other cheesecakes. These was the batter that I had. These are a little browner than I want to show you that I probably overcooked them by like 2 or 3 minutes today. But they don't need to be that brown. But you'll know that they're brown, and sometimes they rise up a little bit and then they fall down just a little bit. So don't be surprised if they come a little bit over the edge once you've taken them out of the oven. And you want to take them out of the oven right? We've taken them out, pretend we just made these and they come out of the oven. You want to leave it on a wire rack like I have over here. And you want those to cool for a good hour, just sitting on the counter. And then you eventually want to get them into the refrigerator. And if you could put a little paper, little saran wrap, but I don't even bother to cover it, okay? Not at all. I just left it in the refrigerator. Just this afternoon, I made these ahead of time. And I'm gonna take this piece of, so it's got a little cinnamon, but it's okay. And let's get, I'm gonna get a cutting board that's better. And if we were to take the cheesecakes and just flip them over, they're gonna stick to the cutting board. So I always like putting a little bit, you could put a piece of plastic, but the paper works just perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna flip these over. See, I was pretty aggressive there. And you just can basically give it a little bit of shake, and they should just, I pop them out. Okay, with my fingers, I'm just pushing them out slowly. They're, like I said, I got them a little browner than I normally do, but that's okay. They're gonna be delicious. They're coming out. I'm just trying to see where the rest of them are. Just peeking here. And these can sit in your refrigerator just like this. So these are all out. Do you see how easy and nice? No mess whatsoever. Easy, easy. And these look like this, okay? So what we're gonna do now is, again, you could just put these in the refrigerator and cover them, right? And they can last a couple days like this. I've been having a few of them. So I made them on Wednesday, a bunch of them, and I've been sharing them with friends. So we're gonna put a little bit of raspberry sauce just on the bottom, just a little bit. I like putting it just on the bottom. We're gonna take one of these, because again, it's just an individual serving. And then I'm gonna take a slice of the orange. Again, no one says you have to do all of this, right? This is all extra. Oops, this orange just broke. I don't like that it broke, but it did. Just gonna set it on top, okay? I'm just showing you. I'm gonna show you closer. Okay, see how that looks? Then I'm going to put more raspberry sauce over the top. Let it fall to the bottom. So underneath, so someone's gonna eventually just eat the orange, and then they're gonna get to the raspberry. So it's gonna be a wow of a wow. And then I like putting a little bit of fresh mint. And if you go into the center of the fresh mint, there's always two little leaves that come together. They look like little rabbit ears. And I'm just gonna put that on the top like that. So that looks just like that. Okay, can everybody see that? And just gonna put that there. And we have all of these we could decorate, but I'm gonna move these right now. We can just leave these actually here. And we're gonna move all of this. And we actually didn't finish too late. Believe it or not, we've made 3 desserts. Incredible, actually. An incredible amount of work in just an hour and a half time. Now, these are really, really hot, and I would love to show you to take them out. I have a plate of them here, just so you can kind of see. We can actually put everything together here. I just cut them, I made some this afternoon. And I cut them in all sorts of little pieces, okay. But when so that's your chocolate dessert, chocolate there. And when you're ready to take this out of the pan, this is way too hot for me to really show you. I mean, it's just too hot. You would cool this, okay? Literally, it would get cool in like 25 minutes. And you would put a cutting board, and then you would take your handles and you would flip it. Now I could be risky here, but it's not gonna come out yet. It's not cool enough. It's not cool enough, so it's not worth it. But I just want you to know, and then you would cut it into your 12 pieces or even smaller.
Carole, they're just simply beautiful. Can you hold up the demonstration of all the desserts just closer to the camera?
Sure. I just I will hold it up and I will bring it closer to us like this.
So there are your Valentine's Day treats, unless you want to do things super fast right now and you can have them for the Super Bowl. As but really, it's delicious for Valentine's Day, and I've
Or
tasted
any
them
day,
all, and
any day.
absolutely fantastic. So we still have about 10 minutes, Carol, if I can give you some questions.
Yes, and I do want to say one thing, Wendy. You know, we are, talking about Valentine's Day, and I just want to say that this kind of baking, which I've been doing now for a full 2 years, is really baking with love all the time, right? Because if you're going to hand off desserts to your friends, your family, and you're consciously know that you're giving them something that's based on whole food, plant-based, and it's not processed sugar, and it's not butter, and it's not oil, and it's not, yes, is it sweet? Yes, it does have date paste. Does it have fat in it? Yes, it does, but these are all health desserts. So when you're giving them out, you at least feel that you're giving love out.
Excellent. Excellent point. Cooking with love, of course, we all know is your main ingredient. Time also is your friend when when you're cooking food. Time and all the good things you can put into the food. And I just want you to know you're receiving rave reviews here for the beauty, for the art. Kudos for another amazing class. Scrumptious desserts. Everything looks wonderful. Works of art. Such beautiful selection of desserts. Happy Valentine's Day to all. So those of you who need to leave, totally understand. Those who can stay, we're going to answer some of the questions that came in. So one is, Carol, where do you get those silicone covers, the covers for the jars?
Oh, those things, you know what? I'll show you. Oh, the jars, the covers. These are my crazy covers, okay? They're from Amazon, okay? And I love them so much because I've become so conscious of not using plastic, everyone. So you buy a set of these and they come in all, and you get literally a set of blue and white, I guess. There's lots of brands, right? But they come in all these small sizes. So I got clear ones and blue ones in a set. I think they were like $12. They were so inexpensive. And then these I love very much. These are called food huggers, and they're super great for if you had, I don't have a half a lemon, but if you had a half a lemon and you find the one that fits the half a lemon, right? And then you put, literally, here, I'll show you. If I could cut this in half, I'll just show you. Cut the lemon in half, and then it goes right into there like that. And so those are good.
Excellent.
I love these plastic covers, and they wash up really nicely, and they're good.
Excellent. Okay, there's quite a few, so I'm going to zip through them. Here we go with substitutes. Another grain to substitute for millet, and a very interesting question, which is, can we substitute sorghum grain? Because sorghum is also a grass and not similar to millet.
Yeah, I mean, sorghum is a delicious flour, actually. And you could definitely, I can't say that I've tried it, but it's a great idea. And I had a friend that recently couldn't use the millet, and she tried flaxseed the other day. She told me, but she said that the flax didn't quite congeal it enough, but maybe if she had put more in. Again, sometimes there is some experimenting that has to get done when you're doing these substitutions, okay? Like I said, I have been working on challah for months now, and I keep tweaking, and you just have to always be conscious of writing things down, and we could actually, I'd show you the challah. If I can show you, today I made it with sweet potatoes. It was actually my very, very first time making it with sweet potatoes. And this was my challah today.
Beautiful.
And it's beautiful, but you're trying to replicate something that you know is your childhood, right? So, and usually challah, you don't use a knife. But today I decided, instead of using pumpkin, I thought to use sweet potato for the sweetness. I didn't want to use date paste in it. And it looks pretty good, actually. Right. I mean, Yeah, so you have to experiment.
Before you go into the challah, because now we're getting questions on that, and your braiding is gorgeous. Let me quickly, because people need to leave, go back to the recipes that we have. Carol,
Yes.
can all of these desserts be frozen? Cheesecake, brownies, and cookies.
Brownies for certain. I'm sure that they can. I'm not sure about the cookies. If I were to freeze the cookies, I would freeze them before I bake them. I would freeze them raw batter and then make them the day of. And then the cheesecake, I'm not sure about because it probably could freeze. Again, I don't know. Somehow desserts disappear from me. Everything disappears, and so I've never done experimenting on freezing of the things. So you're just gonna have to try and see what happens. I definitely know the raw cookie batter will definitely freeze.
Okay. So yeah, raw cookie batter will freeze. The cookies may not. Brownies will freeze, and the cheesecake we just don't know. It seems
I have a feeling the cheesecake could freeze, but it's gonna add moisture to it, I think, and I don't know if it will be so nice. And I just want to show everybody what one of these looks like when you cut them in half, you know, because you have the raspberry in there, right?
that's stunning.
And so that's kind of fun. It's just fun, and when you bite into it, you're gonna be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, this is cheesecake, and it's so delicious.
Great. We have 4 minutes, so I'm going to rush you through the next questions. The cups were filled to the top, right? You didn't fill them 2/3. You filled them all the way up once you put the raspberry in.
I filled them up like 2/3, put the raspberry in because that makes the batter rise, and then I topped them off.
Got it. Okay, very good. And then finally, if you want to be nut-free, is there any substitute? Like would flax or would seeds be okay instead of nuts?
For which dessert? Everything?
Yeah.
I really have to think about. I have to go backwards and think about it. I mean, in the brownies, we had almond butter, and I'm sure you could use seeds. You could use this if you can eat sunflower seeds. I'm guessing that's okay because we said we could use sunflower butter, and if that's an okay thing for that person, you know. These are nuts. I think you could probably, yes, you could probably use maybe even sesame seeds would be delicious in these cookies. You know, tahini is also a good replacement for any butter, right? And that is a good, I make a lot of cookies with tahini. So tahini is a good substitute for any kind of nuts butter.
Right. Okay, so for the Myra who unable to do nuts, maybe seeds, they are a little bit less calorically dense. Oh, she's asking about the cashews in the cheesecake. Sorry, I thought it was for everything. So the cashews in the cheesecake, can you substitute seeds for that?
I don't know it. I don't think so because not that I can think of just off the top of my head because it really needs, it's a rich fat.
Yeah, the cashews give you creaminess, and the cashews offer a creaminess that is different than almonds. So many recipes, I think Carole will agree, you can substitute almonds or cashews. But for the cheesecake, I would almost say for the creaminess, it's probably just the cashews. And then finally, a couple things, everyone's understanding how desserts just tend to disappear. And finally, everyone or many people now want the recipe for the challah. So
oh well, the challah is not gonna. You can't have the recipe to the challah until I get it exactly right. But I think I'm getting it pretty close. It's pretty close. It's never going to be it's never going to be what we all know as something that's full of eggs, oil, butter, sugar. You know, all the things that are not. But it's delicious, and as long as it, you know, it pulls apart, it has all the right characteristics. And I think my success of sweet potatoes today, I actually think is the answer. Great. So the person that couldn't, I think in the earlier question we had, I think the sweet potatoes instead of the date paste could be perfect for the brownies.
Great. Okay, very good. So we're just a minute to go till 6:30. We're in under time. Couple of announcements. So I took note about having a challah class. So maybe in the future we'll have Carole, once she is perfected this recipe, maybe we'll have her do a challah class. And let's see, we don't have any scheduled classes at the moment with Carole, but please continue to check back to the Plant Powered Metro New York website, and we will put upcoming classes on the website. For anyone who's new, we have ongoing classes, even for those of you who are already aware of us. We have ongoing classes, so please continue to check back on events. And we do have a very interesting class coming up on February 10th with Caldwell Esselstyn. So Caldwell Esselstyn is one of the pioneers of the whole food plant-based movement. It's not to be missed. It's being co-sponsored with the JCC, Marlene Meyerson JCC in Manhattan. And it's this Wednesday, February 10th from 11 to 1. And then part 2 is gonna be Wednesday, February 17th, also 11 to 1. And he's going to be addressing heart health, which he's a cardiologist and it's his specialty. And there's some wonderful, there'll be a cooking demo and a class that's called Why This is Important Above and Below the Belt. So not to get too racy, but heart health relates to the whole body. And so I encourage you all to please sign up. Carole can be reached through her website, which is just marvelous. A lot of the recipes are there. Carole with an E at thevegievanguard.com. And I see that the cheesecake has come out of the oven. Bravo.
I'm just showing you it's not quite done. You see how they're light brown? They have a very few more minutes. They're kind of to the touch a little sticky, and they just need like 5 or 6 minutes. I just wanted to say that.
Stunningly beautiful. The whole countertop looks gorgeous. I love the colors. Yeah, those of you who are cooking like this, I'm sure you're aware how colorful the food is, and even your desserts can be colorful. So let's see. Esselstyn's class is coming up. Carole, we will be having more classes. I'll put in a request for the challah baking class. And please continue to check the website and join us. Thank you, everyone. Yep. Anything else?
I have one more thing that I will be on Chef AJ's show doing Passover cooking on Saturday. It's Saturday, March 25th, actually. That is definitely planned for those of you that are interested in holiday baking, not baking, but cooking. I think you'll see what I'm making, and said there's another chef with me, and we're making Passover foods.
Excellent. And just in answering the question about Carole's site, it's thevegievanguard.com. I've put it in the chat, but it didn't take you right to the site. So you can just type it in your.
Please follow me on Instagram, because that's where I post a lot, and for you to get inspired. This is all community. We're all in a community here, and the reasons we have these cooking shows. And tomorrow night actually is Plant Powered Metro. One of my favorite events is the potluck that we do. And I encourage any and all of you to come to our potluck. It's at 6:30, and you go onto the website and just register. And we share recipes tomorrow, and we just meet for an hour over dinner. You don't have to bring anything. You can eat. All of us do eat, and we share one thing. So it's one of the best things, and I love it so much. And it's a good place to also come and ask a lot of questions of other people. And it's when the community who has, other ways of substituting things and can help with these kinds of questions.
Great. I'm just answering this about were they muffins or cupcakes? The cheesecake is in and of itself. It's just made in a muffin or cupcake silicone pan. I think that may answer your question.
They're not muffins. They're not muffins. They're made in a muffin pan, but they're not muffins.
Correct. And they're not really a cupcake either. They're cheesecake.
They're cheesecake. They literally are cheesecake.
And Carole, your Instagram is the Veggie Vanguard?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then final question, is this available in Boston? Uh, Plant Powered Metro New York is part of the Plant Pure communities. We are the New York pod. There is a pod in Boston. I believe it's run by a woman by the name of Nivi Jaswal. I'll put her name in the chat. But I don't know what they call themselves. And you might need to go to the Plant Pure Communities website and look up Boston or anywhere else you might be in the country. But I will say Plant Powered Metro New York is the liveliest of these Plant Pure pods. We have checked out the competition. Not that it's really competition, but we've looked at some of the other ones. Carole in particular has been paying attention. And I think we really offer a lot more than we're seeing in some of the other Plant Pure communities. So those of you who are in other communities not and wanting community where you are, after COVID, of course, go to your local communities. For those of you who want to continue with us on Zoom or here in New York, please continue to join us. And yeah, there's other communities in Texas and other places. So, okay.
All over the world.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for staying extra.
Happy
Thank you and have a
Valentine's
good
Day.
Valentine's. We send lots of love.
Yep.